you? Woo! It's good to be here. I don't think I've ever been introduced to anything in comparison to the Loch Ness Monster or something, or Sasquatch. That's unusual. I am delighted to be here and have this incredible opportunity with LifeVantage and to get to know all of you. What I'm hoping to do today is to share some stories with you, some ideas, maybe a few laughs. It's not just about the movie or just about my work, but rather it's about you, and that's who I want to reach. I've learned in my life, none of us can do everything alone. As a matter of fact, my new book is called Superman's Not Coming. So tag you're it, and how I can pass a torch on to you through the wisdom that I've learned along the way. So last night, a lot of you were asking, how and why LifeVantage? And I want to just share with you how it got started. I'm sure you're familiar with the chairman of your board, Gary Morrow, right? Most of you should know Gary. He's an interesting character, don't you think? And I work with Gary, and I've often aspired to him. I'm intrigued by him, his intelligence, the things he says, and I became most intrigued with his health and welfare. I care a great deal about my health and welfare, as we all do. That's what my work has been really about, uncovering something that critically harms public health and welfare. Nothing upsets me more. I also pay a little closer to my health because I've gotten a little older. I've noticed changes, and Gary's so active. So I'm like, what's he taking? What's he doing? So I asked, and we got into a conversation about Protandim. So I said, I want me some of that Protandim. So that's how we got onto the conversation. And then it went further about LifeVantage. And I was very intrigued when he said, would you consider, interviewing for the board? That would be something that's not always in my realm of work, yet something that I would want to do. Because I believe that companies and people belong together. It's you that makes the wheels go round. And I felt it was a great opportunity. So I interviewed with the board. I really liked them all. And what I liked about them and what I want to talk to you about today is that they don't think inside the box. They were willing to work outside of a box. They were open. They were accepting. They were transparent. I really enjoyed my time with Darren. So I liked as well the direct sales because it's about the people, and that's where I'm most comfortable. And I just thought it was really cool that I'm the first female on LifeVantage board. I thank them very much. That was really very cool. So that's how it came to be. And oh my gosh, I have so much I want to say. I'll keep coming back to check notes because I have the gift of gab and I can get off on a tangent over here. So I want to kind of use my time wisely today. I want to share something with you really quick so I can kind of explain to you what it is that I desperately want to do for you and for all the communities that I work with throughout the world. And that's to pass the torch. And how that came to me was I was honored to be able to pass the Olympic torch after the film came out. I was very nervous to do this. I had never done anything like it before. All of this has been overwhelming for me, but at the same time, I'm so excited. So I'm going to jump in there and do it. Well, the day I went down there, of course, it was raining, and I don't know who passes the Olympic torch and does full makeup, but I guess I did that day. So I was getting very concerned that my mascara was going to be running and the TV cameras were there. But I was becoming more nervous because I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. I didn't have anybody around me. And I'm thinking, what's going on? And I can see him coming around the corner and the torch coming, and I'm like, oh my God, what's going to happen? I mean, I was panicked. And somebody came up and they said, okay, you need to start running. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm running, and like, what am I doing, and where am I going, and what am I taking, and what's this whole thing? And as they got closer, they said, Erin, you need to run and turn around and reach. They're going to pass you the torch. I had so much happening in my mind at once. And I'm like, where am I going to go? What am I supposed to do? The minute I had that courage and I put my hand out and they reached and I grabbed it, let me tell you, boom! I knew right where I was going. And that's what I want for all of you, and to pass the torch and thoughts and ideas and information and wisdom so you take off in your life. I am a big person that loves words. I do. I think there's so many words in our vocabulary that need to be rechanged, or we have perceptions of what they mean, and oftentimes if we hear that word, we'll retreat back. So some of the things I'm going to focus on today, I'm going to start with the word reimagine. I love that word. And today, I want you to reimagine you. Reimagine your life. Reimagine how you will perform in your work, how you can make the best success for yourself, for your family, for your future. A couple of other words that I like to hit upon that are really very important to me. One is choice. I find often in my community work that they've forgotten, oh no, I'm sorry, you have a choice to speak up. You have a choice to get involved. You have a choice to say. You have a choice to believe in yourself. So I'm going to talk about choice a little today. I'm also going to talk about getting out of the so-called box of self-limitations that many people might want to stuff you into. I never liked being in a box. I was back here earlier and I'm like, okay, I need to move. I need to go out a door. So I'm going to talk about how to punch your way out of a box. A couple of other things that I'll talk about will be respect, trust, disruption. That's a good word, don't you think? Oftentimes people, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I always want you to interact with me. When we hear the word, oh, you're a disruptor, that's bad, right? No. Disruption's good. It wakes you up. It gets you off the couch. It gets you asking questions. It gets you, hey, what's going on over there? And that's precisely where I like us to be. When you're comfortable and complacent, things can pass you by. And one of the other words I'm going to talk about here real quick is called stick-to-itiveness. Have you heard of that word? That's good. Let me tell you, I look back on my life, and, now let me start here. Okay, let me introduce myself. Hello, everybody. I'm Erin Brockovich, and I'm not Julia Roberts. Yeah. You have no idea how confusing this was to a whole lot of people even today. I was not expecting that. I mean, one of the first things after the film came out back in 2000 was a group of girls came up and they said, oh my God, I love your film, and I use your Thigh Master all the time. I go, okay, wrong girl. Glad you saw the film. Strange things, people coming up to me and saying, did anyone ever tell you you look like Erin Brockovich? No, but I get Julia Roberts all the time, and they're like, crazy lady. The other day, I was coming through the TSA security, and a lady looked at me, and then she saw my ID, and she goes, "Are you her?" And I'm like looking around. Me? She goes, "Yeah, you her?" I'm like, "Who?" She goes, "Julia Roberts." I'm like, "No." I'm like, "Erin Brockovich." She goes, "You're the real one." I'm like, "Yes." She goes, "Can we take a selfie?" I'm like, "Sure." I was comforted, though, that as a TSA agent, they were actually truly looking at the name and identifying the face. So I thought that was kind of funny. So, a lot of this has been very, very overwhelming for me as well. And it's taken me a long time, my entire career, to figure out what it all means, how I even got here. And I have to tell you, it began with my upbringing, and it's something I cannot get away from because it's applicable to all of us. Most of you may not know, I was born and raised in Lawrence, Kansas. I'm home, I'm back. I loved growing up in the Midwest. It was free. I was outdoors. The weather changes, it was exciting for me. I used to shuck corn. I loved the wheat fields. All of it resonates with me. I feel so rooted in my environment in Kansas, in my upbringing. And my parents were really instrumental to me, and I'll tell you why. Most people don't know I'm a dyslexic. We see a lot of that around. I don't see them always coming out. We'll get into that in a minute. Then I'm going somewhere with all of this. But my biggest challenge growing up was school. I hated school because I had dyslexia, and nobody really kind of knew what it was or what it wasn't. And what bothered me wasn't that I was different, but what bothered me is because I was different, I got put into a box. I felt suppressed, and I knew who I was. This is why I was born a natural biohacker. I know what I'm feeling. I know if something's affecting me poorly. And I knew, but nobody else seemed to know. So it was the judgment. It was the label. It was the perception. It was the suppression that was going on with me that was hurting me the most. Fortunately for me, I had a fabulous mother. She's a journalist and a sociology major, school teacher, great command of the English language with great enthusiasm about choice and believing and faith and being rooted in who you are. And that was my mother. So I would come home from school every day feeling dejected because I had another D or another F on a report card, feeling bad about myself. And my mom would always say, "You know what, Erin? When the going gets tough, the tough get going." I'd heard this a million times. Right, Mom, got it. She said, when you're down and out like that, you need to find your stick-to-itiveness. Listen, I did not know what this word meant. I'm from Kansas. I thought it was some made-up word like cattywampus or slaunchwise. I go, "Mom, I don't know what the hell you're talking about, but really, this is frustrating me. I don't want to hear about it anymore." She goes, "Okay." So she left the room. I'm like, "Good, we're done with that." Only to forget, as I told you, my mother is a journalist and a sociology major with an incredible command of the English language, came back in the room with the Webster's Dictionary. I'm like, here we go. She goes, "Sit down. I want to read you the definition of stick-to-itiveness. Noun, propensity to follow through in a determined manner. Dogged persistence born of obligation and stubbornness." Hello? That's all you had to say to me. Stubborn is my middle name. I am dogged, I am determined, and I am persistent. And frankly, most of us are. So for me at the time, this sounds really ridiculous talking to a room full of adults about this, but I want to tell you what happened in my mind. Oh, I became that little engine that could. I heard that word stick-to-itiveness, and I think I can, I know I can, I know I can. And I became it. A word like that motivated me. And do not think I have this perfectly, easy life and everything's just goes along smoothly. I do not. I have moments in my life where I can literally drop to the floor and cry. And I hear my mom, and she says, Erin, where's your stick-to-itiveness? And I get up and I go at it again. Life requires that we have it, and when you apply it, it works. So next time you're feeling a little down, I hope you think about stick-to-itiveness, or you might not be getting that right cell or think that you're where you're supposed to be. Stop. Game on. Stick-to-itiveness. Refocus and go at it again. That's my mom. So, I had another really great woman in my life. She happened to be a school teacher. Her name was Kathy Borseth, and I've talked about her a lot. What I love about her and what she did for me was a total game changer. She was willing to think outside of the box. As a school teacher, she wasn't going to stay in that standard of conformity that still exists in many places in our educational system. Children are visual. They need to get out and experience and see and touch. And she was one of those teachers. So one day, once again, I had another F on a test. As I was leaving class, she stopped me and she said, Erin, is there something going on? And I'm like, no. She said, well, you know everything in class. You're the first one to raise your hand, but when I give you a test, you fail. I go, oh, I have something called dyslexia, something like that. No reaction from her. She said, okay. She said, well, so I'm intrigued because you see and know everything, right? I said, yeah. She goes, so you must be learning visually and through hearing. I go, okay, I guess. She said, if I give you this test now and I scramble it, will you know it? I said, every answer. She said, okay, I'm going to give you the test. And she did. And I knew every answer. And she gave me an A+. I'm like, wow! Wow! Somebody came out of that box and dared to do something different. And what she doesn't know is the impact it had on me was amazing. Not only did it help me believe in myself, my mom taught me that. Just because you're different doesn't mean you're inferior. And I worry about us when we are different, and we should be different, and that's what makes us individuals, that we suddenly think we're inferior. Nothing could be further from the truth. For me, different is good. So she gave me that belief that just because I was different, I could still achieve, not to mention what it did for my GPA. Let me tell you right there. It was magnificent. So on I go with life, not knowing that everything I just talked to you about was in a way preparing me and transforming me for what was about to come, even though I didn't know it. I went on to work, went on to have a family, was in a bad car accident. That's how I met Mr. Masry, and I got involved in the Hinckley, California case that resulted in the film Erin Brockovich. It wasn't until I went out there and I began to utilize what instinctually I knew and what I was offered that I started to look around and got myself into here where I could see it. I could feel it. And I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on it. And I know every one of you in this room has been in that moment at some point in your life. Those are the moments where I get very quiet. What's going on? And it didn't make sense to me what I saw. All the trees were dying. The animals were covered in tumors. The people were sick. The stories that I heard were outlandish. Who would have believed that? So the more I got involved and the more I learned and the more I started asking questions, the more I started noticing a very similar pattern that I was too familiar with. Push down, push down, push down. I'm like, why are you pushing me back when I'm just asking questions? So I could feel the suppression again and all of it mounting. And the thing that was happening to me was also happening to them. The more questions they asked, the more they were persistent with those questions, the stronger they felt about speaking out, the more they got pushed back. They were hearing exactly what I was hearing. You're not this, you're not that, why should you speak up? And because we question ourselves, they started to pull back. So when I got involved, I would be out there because I was somewhat of an outsider, if you will. Now I'm sitting here looking at green water and two-headed frogs. I'm thinking, Toto, we're not in Kansas anymore. This is not right. So I have some PG&E officials come down my way, and we're having a conversation. I'm like, what's with the green water and the two-headed frog? They're like, oh, that's the norm. I'm like, bullshit. I'm just calling it, right? We see it, but we don't say it. I'm like, no, I don't think so. So I got the same, you're not a doctor, you're not a lawyer, you're not a scientist. Why should anybody out here be listening to you? And I'm like, I don't need to be any of that to tell you that two-headed frogs in green water is wrong. Don't do that. So when you feel that suppression or somebody's questioning something, don't be afraid to rise up and go with what you know and say, I don't think so. A lot of that's about being a biohacker. And I love that moment where we are finally owning ourselves and going, yeah, I don't think so. That isn't working for my health, and let me please be in charge of my own health and what I know is happening to me. Ay, ay, ay. Let me see. I'll get going, and then I'm going to, move on to something else. I had a great person in my life, as well as my father. He was a wonderful man. He was a mechanical engineer. Most people are intrigued with how I was raised. And here I've got a father that actually worked for industry. He ran the pipelines for Texaco. Yet he's the very one that taught me about integrity and taught me about respect and taught me about trust. And he was seeing things in his own work that he wanted me to learn about that were the most important things of all. And in every community I work with, and where I see so many mistakes that have been made, is we've lost integrity. We don't have that mutual respect for our neighbor, let alone the respect that we should have for ourselves. And oftentimes the problem becomes the lack of trust. There's been a breach, and how we rebuild that. And that is something that I truly love about being here today and what you're doing in LifeVantage. And I see it. And that has integrity. That is about respect. And you are building that trust between LifeVantage, between you and your client and your customer. That's what makes the wheel go round. And when it gets breached is when we have so many problems. So my father really opened my eyes to principles and things that would be so important in all of our lives. So with that, I think a couple of things. Listen, I could stand here and talk all day long. You know, sometimes I feel like Sybil's upside in my head, and I've got all these voices going, talk about this, go here, go there. But because of time's sake, I'll cut a few things out. What I want to go with right here now is some of the wisdom that I learned growing up and clearly in and out all of these communities. My work continues. I still get, thousands of emails a month from 126 different countries and territories. And most people are searching, I think, again, for somebody to either pass them the torch or give them permission to speak up. If you need permission from me to speak up, I'm going to tell you right now, you have my permission. Speak up. Don't question the environment that you're living in and what you're experiencing and having someone else tell you that's not what you're experiencing. So I've learned what I like to call my 4 L's. I'll make it real simple. The first one is logic. Now, people will say to me, what is logic anyway? We could have these debates all day long. What is the truth anyway? What is logic anyway? Well, I think of logic this way. I was born and raised in Lawrence, Kansas, as I told you. I used to play outside all the time. And there were those days where it was too hot. It was too oppressive. And I could see those thunderheads building in the background. Come nighttime, we're getting into some serious storm activity. Now, I could be out playing, and when the sky goes dark, and then it goes black, and the crickets stop chirping, and the birds start singing, and those tornado sirens go off, I'm not going to stop and call the Weather Channel and ask if it's an F5 or an F3, because I don't care, because my common sense tells me to run. That's what your logic is your common sense. I have learned that when you use your common sense and you follow it, you will logically do the right thing. And this is something I want everyone to tap into because we're often taught not to use it or not to believe it. You have a great set of inner skills that reside right here in your gut and right there in your heart. That's that intuition, that common sense. Use it. It's a lifesaver. Another example, if y'all wake up tomorrow and the headline read, municipality tainted with rat poison, are you going to call the National Institute of Health and go, is that 1 part per billion or 10? Or does something tell you logically with your common sense or vice versa, don't drink the water? I encourage communities to do that. Nobody knows better that what's going on in their environment than those that are living in their environment. Get back to that common sense. That's your logic. The other is leverage. As I said earlier, I didn't do this alone. That would be impossible. When we collectively came together as a people with a common goal and we worked together, we flowed together, it worked out. Otherwise, had we not been together, it would have never worked out. So one thing that I talk about is leverage. We need to leverage each other, our team, our community, because it just makes us that much stronger. And I really learned the value of this working in the Hinckley case. Look, when it was just me and Roberta Walker, PG&E was paying no mind to us. Then we became 5 and 10. We're nothing. 25, 30. Now we're getting a little pesky. But when we leveraged ourselves and we became 50 and 100 and 200 and 400 and 500 and 600, we were seen, we were heard, and now they were paying attention to the collective community. And leverage is important. So think of math. We all know 1 + 1 is 2, right? But in principle, the leverage of 1 + 1 will create 1,000 or more, and so on. So leverage those around you. This is another word that we think, oh, when we're leveraging something, it's bad. We're leveraging something for money. No, it's not. Leveraging is taking your hand. Get my hand, and let's do this together, because you become a much more powerful force. So logic, leverage. The third is loyalty. Sorry, I've got allergies. Welcome to Kansas. Loyalty. Be true to your cause. When you're in the game, stay in the game. Be loyal. Be loyal to yourself. Be loyal to your work. Loyal to that cause is critical. Every community I got involved with, there was days where they felt like giving up, but they knew once they started, they were in it, and they were in it to win it, and they were staying in it to be faithful to their cause, to their public health, welfare, their family, and they were there. So logic, leverage, loyalty. Loyalty is a little bit of that stick-to-itiveness. Stay loyal to your cause. And last but not least, I would think you could figure out what the last L is all about. Do you ever ask yourself, what is your why? Why am I getting up again and participating in another day of a rat race? There's so much to do, and so much noise, and so much coming after us, and so much technology, and so much change. It's getting really hard to keep up. What is your why? Why are you participating? Why are you getting up? And I know you know the answer. And it's something that I don't know we're hearing enough of late, but it's called love. It's love of work, love of family, love of health, love of country, love of freedom. It is love about everything that we do that is our passion, that gets us up every day, and we keep marching out there and getting it done. Remember, it's born of love. And most importantly, love of one's self. We're so busy giving love and help to our families and everyone around us, and we should. But oftentimes, and what worries me the most, is don't forget to love yourself and to say, I've done a good job, and to be kind on yourself and not hard on yourself, because we are. I am exactly the same way. So I hope today, and when you go home tomorrow, you remember it. When things pop into your head, we've got stick-to-itiveness on board. We've got our 4 L's, logic, leverage, loyalty. When you're feeling down, why am I doing it? Remember it. Because I love work. I love life. I love my family. I love myself. And we'll go at it again. So before I kind of go into my closing, I want to share something with you that I am fascinated with. I know you all are familiar with the film The Wizard of Oz, aren't you? Yeah. Have you read the book by L. Frank Baum, The Wizard of Oz? If you haven't, you need to, and let me tell you something about it right now, because it's fun and it gives you something to think about, things that we've forgotten, but we are here again today. L. Frank Baum wrote his book at the height of the Industrial Revolution as a way to teach his children the power of individualism and one thinking for itself in a world that increasingly is going to begin to speak for you. Don't know if that sounds familiar to you, but it does to me. So he wrote the book, and it's been highly studied by some of our greatest scholars, and it is concluded that there is a true political allegory within that book and in that children's fairy tale. And it goes a little something like this. And I'm fascinated. Dorothy is the everyday girl. She's out on a journey to find herself. And I think every one of us understands that. We all are that girl next door that goes out into the world, into that journey, and along her journey, she discovers something and she wants to make it right. So as you know, she's going home and the twister arises. Well, the twister in the book is disruption. And it's disruption of what's happening in D.C. So I'm thinking, okay, well, this sounds familiar, kind of where I'm at in my life and my journey and all of us, and we have disruption going on. And so the tornado picks her up, and off to the land of Oz she goes, and boom, she plunks down on the Munchkins. The Munchkins are a representation of the American citizens who are feeling frustrated. And nobody's listening to them. And Dorothy takes that time to do it. And they set her out on the yellow brick road. The yellow brick road in the book is the standard of gold. It's follow the money. So she follows that path. And along the way, she meets the Cowardly Lion, the Tin Man, and the Scarecrow. Okay, the Cowardly Lion in L. Frank Baum's book is a representation of his best friend, William Bryan's Ginning, who was running for president, known for his fiery rhetoric, yet had no courage. Oh, you ever look at some of our politicians today? That sounds familiar to me. Then the Scarecrow. And the Scarecrow is a representation of the American farmer. And the reason everyone thought in the book he had no brain is because the banks were buying up all the land. And that's what was happening at the time. And look where our American farmer is today. That sounds very familiar to me. And then the Tin Man. He's a representation of man becoming the worker that begins to lose his heart in industry because he's treated so hardly. So I look at everything we are and what he was teaching then, and we're here again today. But here's the message that I find really interesting. As you know in the film, they go along the yellow brick road to go find the wizard because, the wizard's going to save everybody. Let's go back to Superman's not coming. But off they go. And they get put to sleep by the wicked witch. She bugged me, and I hated her flying monkeys. Every time I watch that, I'm still like, what the F is up with the flying monkeys? They're making me nervous. But she puts them to sleep in the poppy fields because she doesn't want them to find out what's going on. I truly believe we are waking up today. Is it possible we've been in that box, we got put to sleep, that we've been comfortable or complacent or a false sense of security somehow has wrapped around us? And now we are waking up. Look at the rise in the empowerment of women on the move today. The changes that we are making. And here Dorothy and all of them got to the wizard, and as they pulled back the curtain, they saw it was nothing more than a bunch of, this and that kind of going on. They didn't have a clue what they were doing up there, but they saw that for themselves. I believe, as biohackers, we are beginning to clearly see for ourselves what is going on. But the moral to the story that I don't want us to ever forget, because I think we're in a similar parallel, is that we too have always had a heart. We have always had the courage, and we have always had that brain. And I don't care how tough it gets on you, we will find our way home. Oh, that's the message. Power to you, power to the people. And I think we forgot that. That's what I want you to own today. See, I thought that was a fun little story to share. So, I don't know how long I've been talking. Oh, see, I have about 10. Keep going? Okay. I get, here, let me go through all my notes because I didn't want to talk too long. Let me see, where do I want to go? Blah, 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 blah. All right, well, see, yeah. I'm kind of coming to my closing, so it's probably about the perfect timing, because I see them up there. I'm down to 9 minutes and 59 seconds. It's like, I'm in the box. Stop it. Stop. Oh, I almost flipped the bird. I'm so sorry. I do. I try to mind my manners. I can't help but be me, right? So, in closing, again, it's been so important to me. From the bottom of my heart, it is an absolute privilege for me to be here, to be a part of you, your work, and LifeVantage. I go by things and energies that I truly get, and I'm not going to be Shirley MacLaine-ish on you and DDD, all that stuff, but it's very real for me. Everything I'm here today, I want to give to you. I believe in you. And if there's anybody out in this room that has any doubt about themselves, don't. Don't doubt you. You are the best person to know what you need to do. But please know, I will be your biggest cheerleader. And I will be here along the way to make sure if you have that day, we're going to get up and we're going to keep going. And so I want to know what else I can share. So I created a program that I call RAM. I love Rams, by the way. I love to be outdoors and to see them in their environment. They are confident. They are strong. They are stoic. How they get up those rocks and teeter up there the way they do, I have no idea. But I find it awe-inspiring. And that just comes from their natural confidence in nature. So I created a program called RAM. Now, I went and looked up the definition just since, my mom pulled the word stick-to-itiveness on me. So I looked up RAM, and its meaning is to do and achieve by moving obstacles out of one's way. Sometimes the only obstacle in your way is you. I've stood and blocked myself on many occasions. And so in RAM, the R stands for realization. To realize the strength that you do have. To realize, yes, we're not perfect. We all have flaws, and oftentimes we don't want to embrace those. And I think it's really important that you do, because flaws are what make you perfect, and everybody has them. And I learned in Hinckley what I thought would be my greatest flaw in my life actually was the very gift that I had to help me figure out what was going on. So realize who you are, the strengths you have, and even the flaws that you have, and embrace them. Don't be afraid to take a look at that man in the mirror, if you will, and honestly have a conversation back. Because inside there, if you'll embrace that person, you'll find who you are and all the courage you need to keep moving forward in life, flaws and all. All of that would bring me to the A, and A is about assessment and accountability. Assessment. Think of it this way. If there's something about you that you don't like, first of all, that's okay. But we'll spend a lot of time beating ourselves up over that, right? Don't. Think of it as a real estate transaction. You have a home and you want to sell it. And they come in and they tell you an appraisal and it comes in low. What do? I don't know. You remodel a bathroom? You put in new floors? You put on a coat of paint? They come back, your appraisal's gone up. That's the beauty of choice. And when you make an assessment of yourself, if you see something you don't like, choose to change it. You can choose to go to night school. You can choose to change your perception. You can choose to have a conversation. You can choose to work on whatever it is about yourself that you might not like. Because when you do, your appraisal of yourself will only go up and up and up. So make an assessment. And be accountable. This is something that we don't often do. That's one of the hardest things we can do. Let me tell you, I have definitely made some mistakes. And it was easier for me and more empowering for me to just say, yes, I did it. Yes, I made a mistake. Instead of going, you did it, you did it, you did it, you did it, or looking to somebody else. I just want to own it, and I find great strength in doing that. So don't be afraid to assess who you are. Don't be afraid of making a mistake. And if you did, own it. Because it's empowering to own what you've done, both good and bad. And finally, the M is going to be about motivation. And did we talk about this here just a little bit earlier? It's getting really tricky these days to stay motivated. I mean, it's a rat race out there, keeping up with technology and children and going to work and school and being at their events and taking care of yourself. I mean, we're just going faster and faster and faster and faster and faster and faster. And that mojo is just kind of escaping us. But there's a trick to keeping your motivation. And that is taking time for self-renewal. Again, my message that I want to send home to you today is these moments where you love yourself, where you find that moment for self-renewal, that you can begin to find yourself. So even today, make it a priority to stop for a moment and find the time for self-renewal. You know, it's kind of like our computers, right? You know, when you start inputting a lot of data into the computer, that blue circle's like this. Y'all familiar with that? That happens to us. We are human after all. A lot of information coming in, a lot of stuff to process. This is self-renewal. It's processing it. And when you find yourself like that, I want you to stop. When's the last time you actually heard your heartbeat? When's the last time you actually took a deep breath? Or stopped to smell a rose? Or appreciate the sun on your face? Or the smell of fresh cut grass? Or the smell of fresh rain? Or the laughter of a child as they play? Or the sound of the water as it runs down a brook? These are the places, these are the spaces, these are your connections to this planet, that will be a connection to yourself, where you can be quiet for a moment and recognize you are alive, and hear yourself think and hear yourself feel. This is where you will find the power of who you are within. So, coming out of crazy motivation and into a quiet space, this is where you will learn the most about yourself. And this is where I say you will find there will be no obstacle you cannot surmount. There will be no fear you cannot conquer, no matter how impossible it may seem. Because when you are connected to you and you find the strength of yourself, it's the three little pigs, right? Because the one in the foundation, all the huffing and puffing and blowing, and you're not going to be able to blow it down. Find your foundation, find your voice, your heart, your courage, your brain. I know you have one. I'm your biggest cheerleader. And go out there and kick some ass today and tomorrow, because I'm banking on you. Thank you very, very much. Go get 'em!